The number is 27,412,810.56. You have looked at it so many times you have stopped seeing it as money. It has become a coordinate, a high water mark on a cliffside that you are no longer standing on. In the beginning, the digits felt like a shield, a glass wall between you and the friction of the world. Now, they are just ink on a thermal receipt that has faded in the sun. The number is precise, clinical, and indifferent to the fact that it no longer belongs to you. Level 1. The winner. Here is what you trade. The transaction begins in a fluorescent-lit convenience store at 11:14 p.m. You trade $2 for a slip of paper and, for the first time in your life, you trade your anonymity for a statistical impossibility. When the machine confirms the numbers, the air in your lungs suddenly feels expensive. You gain a future where you never have to check the price of a gallon of milk again. You lose the ability to trust the motives of every person you have ever met. That is the deal. You stand in your kitchen, clutching the ticket, and the silence of your apartment feels different. It is no longer the silence of a man who is resting, it is the silence of a vault. You think you have won freedom, but you have actually just traded a small, manageable life for a large, high-maintenance cage. You didn't know you had agreed to pay for the permanent disappearance of your own reflection. Level 2. The Benefactor. The exchange rate shifts again. The balance in your checking account looks like a phone number. You gain the intoxicating power of the yes. You buy your mother a house with 5 bedrooms she will never use. You pay off your brother's gambling debts. You buy a round for the entire bar and feel the warmth of 50 strangers pretending to love you. Here is what you trade, the word no. It vanishes from your vocabulary, and as it disappears, so does the sincerity of your relationships. Every conversation now has a subtext of a request. Every "how are you?" is a prelude to a business proposal or a medical bill that needs covering. You gain the title of the family savior. You lose the ability to know if you are liked or simply useful. The ledger never closes. You didn't know you had agreed to pay for the slow rot of your brother's ambition. Level 3. The Socialite. Here is what you trade. You move into a zip code where the hedges are taller than the people. You gain a 9,000 square foot sanctuary of Italian marble and smart glass. You trade the comfort of old sneakers for the stiff prestige of handmade loafers. You are invited to galas where the entry fee is more than your father made in a year. You gain a network of peers who treat wealth as a personality trait. You lose the concept of enough. In this world, 27 million is not a fortune. It is a respectable start. You find yourself looking at the yachts of the tech moguls and feeling a familiar, biting hunger. You gain the envy of the world. You lose the peace of being satisfied. You are sitting in a mahogany row waiting room when you overhear 2 junior associates talking by the coffee machine. One mentions that subscribing to this chronicle of human experience is the only way to understand the cost of the climb. You stare at the dust motes dancing in a sunbeam. You do not react. You simply file the information away as another thing you now know. You didn't know you had agreed to pay for the permanent loss of your own perspective. Level 4. The Investor. The exchange rate shifts again. You are no longer a person. You are a portfolio. You gain a team of advisors whose smiles are as sharp as their suits. They talk to you in the language of yield, liquidity, and risk-adjusted returns. You trade your time for meetings in glass towers where you understand only half of what is being said. You gain a sense of importance that borders on a God complex. You lose the connection to the value of a dollar. You spend $30,000 on a watch because an advisor told you it was a store of value. You gain a collection of assets. You lose the ability to enjoy a simple meal without calculating the opportunity cost of the time spent eating it. The ledger never closes. You didn't know you had agreed to pay for the right to be lied to by professionals. Level 5. The Target. Here is what you trade. The first lawsuit arrives on a Tuesday. It is followed by a second on Friday. You gain a permanent seat in the back of a black town car, hidden behind tinted windows. You trade your sense of security for a sophisticated security system that tracks the movement of squirrels in your backyard. You are sued by a man who tripped on your sidewalk and by a former business partner you haven't spoken to in 3 years. You gain a profound understanding of the legal system. You lose the ability to sleep through the night without the aid of a chemical. Every phone call from an unknown number feels like a threat. You gain the protection of a high-priced legal defense. You lose the freedom to walk through a park without looking over your shoulder. You didn't know you had agreed to pay for the permanent suspicion of everyone you encounter. Level 6. The High Roller. The exchange rate shifts again. Boredom is the new enemy. You gain access to the private rooms in Las Vegas where the air is scented with expensive citrus and desperation. You trade the value of your assets for the dopamine hit of a falling card. You gain the temporary thrill of a six-figure win. You lose the dignity of self-control. You start to see the 27 million not as a life-changing gift, but as a stack of chips that needs to be played. You gain the reputation of a whale. You lose the ability to feel anything at all unless there is a significant amount of money on the line. The ledger never closes. You find yourself standing on a balcony at 4 a.m., looking down at the strip, realizing you have traded your soul for a seat at a table where the house always wins. You didn't know you had agreed to pay for the death of your own joy. Level 7. The Defendant. Here is what you trade. The unforeseen market downturn meets the unresolved litigation. You gain a front-row seat to the dismantling of your empire. You trade the Italian marble for the linoleum of a courtroom hallway. You gain a deep, personal relationship with the concept of Chapter 11. You lose the friends who once toasted your health with your own vintage wine. The town car is replaced by a rideshare. The mansion is replaced by a listing on a foreclosure site. You gain a terrifying clarity about who you are when the money is gone. You lose the armor you spent years building. You gain the pity of the people who used to envy you. You lose the right to be heard. You didn't know you had agreed to pay for the privilege of watching your own life be sold off in lots. Level 8. The Liquidator. The exchange rate shifts again. You are back in a small room. The air smells of dust and old paper. You gain a stack of legal documents that finalize the end of the dream. You trade the last of your pride for a settlement that keeps you out of prison but leaves you with nothing. You gain the quiet that comes after a long, sustained scream. You lose the identity of the winner. You look at the watch you bought for $30,000, the one that was supposed to be a store of value. You sell it for $4,000 to pay a tax lien. You gain a few more weeks of breathing room. You lose the last physical evidence that you were ever someone else. The ledger never closes. You didn't know you had agreed to pay for the realization that the 27 million was never actually yours. You were just its temporary caretaker while it destroyed you. Level 9. The Ghost. Here is what you trade. You are standing in the same convenience store where it began. The light is still fluorescent. The smell of stale coffee is unchanged. You gain a perspective that few people on Earth will ever possess. You trade the weight of a fortune for the lightness of having nothing left to lose. You gain a job that pays by the hour. You lose the obsession with the coordinate on the cliffside. You see a young man buy a lottery ticket and walk out with a smile that looks like yours used to. You gain the urge to warn him. You lose the belief that he would listen. You realize that your legacy isn't the money you spent, but the void you left behind in the lives of people who only loved your balance sheet. You gain the hard-won stillness of a survivor. You lose the illusion of control. You sit on a park bench at 11:14 p.m. A stranger sits on the other end. They look at you, seeing only a man in a worn jacket, someone unremarkable, someone who fits into the shadows of the city. They ask you if you have the time. You check your phone, a cheap, cracked model that does nothing but tell the truth. You tell them the time. They nod and ask how you ended up here, in this park, at this hour, looking the way you do. You think about the houses, the cars, the lawsuits, and the nights in Vegas. You think about the ledger that never truly closes. You open your mouth to tell them about the price of a statistical impossibility. The number is 27,412,810.56. You have looked at it so many times you have stopped seeing it. It is no longer a coordinate, or a coordinate on a cliffside, or a high water mark. It is the exact weight of the air in an empty room, and for the first time in a decade, you find that you can finally breathe it.